Okay, so thank you very much for coming in today. So this session on how to use cloud technology to drive efficiency and improve customer engagement. We're very lucky to have a very distinguished panel here today. And starting first on my left is John Grunnen, who is the CIO of Hurtigruten in Norway. And then we also have Paul Scusa, who is the Director of Technology with Disney, and Daniele Buonaiuto, who's the CIO of MSC Cruises. I don't need to do bios in these guys because I think everybody knows you guys as well. So the aim of the presentation is to, or the panel discussion, is really just to look at cloud computing and discuss how it's improving efficiencies and customer engagements in the industry. So we're going to look at the now, hopefully. We're going to look at the future. And we're going to do just a little bit of a discussion on just explaining how each of the panelists see cloud and what cloud actually is. Okay. So what I'd like to start with, I'm just going to take a seat now, if that's okay. So how I'd like to just start with, could you sort of explain to the audience what you understand cloud to be for each of your kind of companies, or just in general, really? I kind of noted down that there's like private cloud, public cloud, and open cloud. And John very kindly has told me about open cloud. So I could ask, maybe start at this end, Daniel, to talk about either private or public, or just explain what you think.
Thank you so much for this, because I think the very first challenge is to give you another representation of what is cloud today. We started with infrastructure many years ago. What's a cloud? It's an on-demand availability of computer resources. What does it mean? At the beginning, you know this very well, because I think there's a competent audience here, but fundamentally, the companies are now investing no more in the infrastructure upfront, but they are investing in capacity. And capacity is available on demand. So this completely changes the way we put the accent on technologies. And cloud is not infrastructure anymore. Today, we also speak about services. So flexibility, elasticity, which also means to manage very, very well the fluctuations of the demand. You never expect to have a slowdown on Amazon, on Google, because there is a peak of traffic there. The same must happen on all the services they use daily. And the cloud is helping the company not to invest upfront in technologies, because you don't know the volumes. And especially in a COVID context, like the one we are living with, we see a lot of peaks and throws, peaks and throws. People see an hope of reserving a cruise, and they start seeking for the product. Then they stop because there is a new phase of this pandemic. And now that there is a clearance of all the measures about COVID, they want to get back in travel. So we see a lot of peaks. How we manage the peak? Through the cloud. The cloud is giving us the outburst capacity in a very flexible way.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And Paul, how would you sort of look at cloud? How would you describe cloud in your business?
Yeah, for us, I look at it in twofold, right? Where there's the shoreside component, the shipboard, and the commonality. I think Daniele spoke very eloquently too, right? It's about the elasticity, about buying capacity, and then managing to that capacity. But then where the two meet, I think, is where it starts to become interesting, right? When you start talking about how do I get higher degrees of compute on board, on demand when I need it? You know, those embarkation moments, those debarkation moments, those dinner moments, right? We have all these peaks and valleys that we know so well. But then the transmission of data to shoreside and back, but also the commonality of capabilities, right? We talked, the gentleman from Sourceted was talking about AI and ML, right? There's components of those that are amazing in a public cloud environment, but how do we bring some of those on board? More and more cloud providers are creating libraries that can be used in your private cloud to accomplish the same capabilities.
And John, we spoke the other day a bit about open cloud, which is an interesting subject. You know, we talk about hybrid clouds and stuff. And so, John, how do you define open cloud?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me here. So open cloud is a niche, and you can define it as very open source, where it's not the typical commercial actors that are in, and you'll find it for BitTorrent, Bitcoin, Linode, and you'll find kind of very specialized services that focuses on open cloud. And as you mentioned here, for us, it's more into private cloud, where we can initialize and build upon infrastructure as code and do that remotely onboard a ship in order to utilize the edge computing, which we'll come back to later, with automation and those kind of services.
Excellent, thank you. So one of the key, my research on cloud, one of the key reasons for it is to drive efficiencies. How do we drive efficiencies in the business? And I've kind of noted a few efficiencies, but I think always the key one is financial efficiency. So, so using cloud to drive financial efficiency from start. So how do you guys, utilize cloud services to drive financial efficiencies? Do you want to take that, John, first?
Sure, thank you. So it's very different shore side and sea side. So let me focus on sea side here on ship. So we have a big benefit from infrastructure as code and running everything automatically. And if you build that right from scratch, you can reach up on close to 100% automation and infrastructure as code with all the layers of your infrastructure. And that is a big time saver and big cost saver, and will also help us in situations like a hacker attack or in a situation where you need to rebuild things. Yep. So that's an enormous advantage based on private cloud and the application services that's out there.
Cool. Paul?
Yeah, I would add on to that the efficiency of troubleshooting. Mm-hmm. How often have we had something working perfectly in one ship, or perfectly sometimes on one ship, but not others, right? So using infrastructure as code and being able to deploy that entire operating system to code all in one component, and knowing that it's consistent not only across my ship but across my fleet, has been immensely helpful. Another big one I'll speak of, and I'm sure we all went through the recent Log4j fun, being able to deploy fixes or changes in that way, in a much more efficient way, consistently, and to be able to know that we've applied the same fix universally is a huge efficiency benefit.
Excellent. Daniel, would you like to pick up on that as well, please?
Yeah, no, effectively, cloud is one of the levers to create efficiency in the company, efficiency and effectiveness, not only because you are not putting the accent on upfront investments, and you are effectively utilizing the infrastructure that you have more efficiently. So we have more or less two scenarios, completely different. One is on board, when you are still bound to a data center. 1, 2 data centers, depends on what kind of strategy you have, but fundamentally, the challenge in using cloud approach there is to maximize the effectiveness and efficiency of the resources that you bought. So, and this is a lever for efficiency in terms of utilization. The second scenario instead is even more interesting. Why? Because buying capacity and not infrastructure is also giving us more flexibility in bringing some of the processes on board short side. Why? Because we can transfer data real time. We will see connectivity a little bit later, but we can have also the flexibility to stop new processes, new machines, if we have to elaborate data processes short size that was early sitting on the ship. So this is a second example.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's excellent. And a number of you referred to, I suppose, the DevOps area of cloud, continuous integration, continuous development, which, as IT guys, that's always been the bane of our lives, with the best will in the world, with the great vendors we have in the industry. So, utilizing DevOps in cloud and scripted setups, how would you describe that as being better than the current fixed infrastructure? How are you using that to really enhance your services?
For me, I would use one word in that, and that's evergreen, right? So, when a container or a pod starts to have a problem, we can immediately detect that, tear it down, and immediately create a new one without really there being any blip to a guest experience, to a to a crew member's experience, or to a shoreside cast member employees' experience. So I think that's really one of the keys there in that DevOps world, especially even when we're deploying new code, when we're deploying new capabilities, to be able to very quickly push a button and get it out across the board.
Okay. And Danielle, would you like to pick up on that bit and include maybe auto-scaling and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, definitely, and we are using this approach effectively on board. We just finished the second implementation of Otalio based on containers, virtualization, fundamentally to make everyone understand the concept behind. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago especially, there was somehow more rigidity in configuring the servers on board or short side. With the software-defined data center, with this new way of configuring machines, we can configure machines in minutes, not anymore in hours or days, in minutes. The example that he was giving is very effective, meaning that if you encounter problems, you can effectively restart the container or the machine quite easily. And this is also due to the paradigm that has completely shifted from hardwired coding or configuration to software configuration, which is lighter, faster, and even more understandable and more manageable by IT staff.
Okay, perfect. And again, John, with the whole CDI, especially with these now, very strong Kubernetes-based sort of systems based on Linux, saving money efficiently. How do you find that to really allowing you to deliver your DevOps?
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, when it comes to the ship side, there is nothing without these services, and it comes with this sort of technology that enables us to run auto-scaling and to run these Kubernetes setup that we do. When talking about shore side, again, there is no other option. Are you to live in a modern world with no modern solution, you need to have these sort of services from public cloud or private cloud. So it's a given.
Okay, and I mean, one of the great things about cloud we found is, especially like the AWS cloud, where you got standardized services such as Oracle RDS and the various other services, so you can scale up an Oracle server. Hey, that's cool, isn't it? So regarding those specialist services and also the whole idea of having your infrastructure supply chain in one control panel, have you found that to be really, really sort of a game changer for you as businesses? Daniel, do you want to grab that?
Definitely, the supply chain for the data center is completely upset now. The focus is now in buying hardware, managing complexities, contrast with technology providers is about capacity. So we are shifting towards the services. Then on the technology stack, IT can have the luxury of focusing more on the business services than on the technological complexities.
Excellent. I'd like to jump on to another question, because I think this is one that a lot of people would be interested in. How do you work out the strategic decision to make this move to cloud? So if anybody was sitting here saying, "God, we want to use cloud," how would we make the move to it? What are the things we need to think about? And what would we need to do it? I think you've had to do this not so distant past. Would you start with that, John? Or we
Yeah,
to Paul?
sure. So for us, it's not the destination; it's a journey. And I think everyone here has a multi-cloud hybrid approach or operating model. It certainly ends up like that quite quickly. Each application or service has their preferred cloud service, and you can choose it or not choose it. But over time, you'll end up with a hybrid multi-cloud solution. Yeah. And for us, it's not really a given strategy to go cloud, but again, we live in a situation where there is no other real good option. So the strategic decision here will be to see how this journey is, in what direction it's moving, but no end goal.
Yeah. Okay. And Paul, would you?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? I can take that not only from a Disney Cruise Line approach, but from a Disney Parks experience and products approach, because we've recently undertaken that. So, number one, I think we were all just sick of hardware failures, right? And the pain, the pain that they come along, and like, we're doing this again, really? Like, so really to get out of the hardware business, as an organization, I don't need to be in the hardware business. On board is a completely different story, obviously. But then we had to start with the why, right? And I think that's the big key. Why do you want to go to the cloud? Do you want to go to the cloud because it's the buzzword, so you can say you're in the cloud, or do you want to go to the cloud to take advantage of the efficiencies and the scalability, the elasticity that we've all been speaking of here? And I think if you begin with that end in mind, John said it best, it's a journey, right? You're not going to get there overnight. We took major steps to just do what we call a lift and shift in some cases, getting hardware over to somebody else's hardware, right? Mm-hmm. And then you really start taking advantage of cloud-based services when you can start migrating to containers, and you can start migrating to the concept of these containers as code, so that you're no longer managing operating systems, you're managing a deployment of a holistic unit.
And Daniel, would you also like to just give us a bit about MSC's journey, or your journey?
I would revert to question in terms of why not to migrate to cloud. No,
okay.
Not because it's a buzzword, but because when you buy a server today or when you do an application, you have an overhead to manage, meaning in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of data privacy. There are many regulations all over the world, so you're not only buying a machine, a computational power, but you also have to protect that machine and that asset according to the threats that we are having on the market. So we need really to think if, for a cruise company like the ones we represent today, we need to focus on more on technologies, and there must be very strong reason for that. Because we are using that technology to help the guest experience, to make great efficiency in the company. So our accent is not in having the bits and the bytes with us. The more we can give out, delegating other responsibilities and transferring the risk, the better it is. So when we take the decision not migrating something, there must be very strong rationales on that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, yeah, I totally agreed. I'll move on to the next topic, because, of course, there's zero point in doing any of this, moving anywhere, unless we're improving the customer experience, or at least keeping the same quality. But I guess we're always aimed to get more customer engagement and customer experience. So I'd like to pose the question, but more from a technical standpoint. What are the key parts of cloud services, hybrid cloud services, such as availability, high quality, high quality guaranteed speed? What of these elements do you see as will really drive customer engagement and better customer experience? Paul? Yeah.
Sure. For us, I believe the biggest component there is the rope drop type events, right? Mm-hmm. Major product launches, first on sale of a new vessel, things like that. So for me, to be able to provide that better guest experience, so when they hit my site, no matter what the load, the volume, that rope drop event, that I can withstand the load, I can handle it. And if not, many of the cloud providers offer these waiting room concepts, velvet rope, you name it, that allow you to manage that demand. So if I'm expecting 100,000 hits in the first minute, well, maybe that's going to tip me over, or maybe I'm ready for that. But what happens if that ends up being 500,000 hits in the first minute? How do I make sure I can withstand that? Or move the other 400,000 to a waiting room and start to pull them in, so they at least have a known experience instead of an error experience.
John?
Yeah, it's two different things, I would say. So on the shore side and booking services, you can push updates a lot easier and quicker. And that helps with the being up to date with the message to the customer and tune your message to the individual group or segment. Mm-hmm. On the sea side, you can do performance, and that's also on shore, but in seaside, performance is extremely important when you're messaging each customer, for instance, which we talked about with source code. And there you need that capacity. So, yeah.
Okay. And that's the same question to you, Daniel? Please.
No, to add something meaningful, because I perfectly agree in accordance with them, there are two other needs that now we need to satisfy, we need to fulfill for the customers, which is relevance and personalization. No? We are not giving them the product, we are giving them an experience. So as an industry, we need to look forward to offer more an experience. To offer an experience, we need to understand not only the clear understanding of the customers, but also what is inside the customer, what is not expressed. And to give this kind of experience, we need to leverage on artificial intelligence. We need to understand the behavior of the customers along all the channels and elaborate a huge quantity of data. Now, to make this happen and be ready, prompt in giving the customer what he's seeking for in that precise moment, not after 8 hours. In that precise moment, the customer is seeking for a product, for an experience that look like what he's seeking for. To be that fast, we need to use cloud technologies, because you cannot have a data center already able and sized to give you the answer they are seeking for. So putting this kind of elaboration, artificial intelligence on the understanding the behavior and the kind of interaction, we can effectively scale up the model.
Yeah, yeah. And just kind of following on what you were saying there, Daniel, I mean, so we can't necessarily have cloud on the ship at the moment, you know, and I'm coming on to that comms and stuff a bit later on. But using the idea of cloud to deliver the onboard experience, we can prepare stuff in the cloud and then push it down, but then it goes on to onboard infrastructure, even though it's virtualized and all the rest. But can you see places where the cloud is really going to pump up the onboard experience, where more connectivity is going to do it? What sort of elements can you use to use the cloud to increase the onboard customer experience? Would you take that?
I can start. I mean, fundamentally, the gap that we had before the introduction of new technology, especially in the connectivity, is now subtle. We are closing the gaps. The capacity available on the market for making interconnected services, shore, ship, is helping us to effectively build a new customer journey. Okay? So when we intervene with cloud services to improve the customer experience, first of all, when we need data to give an answer to the customers. The second is we are moving some of the processes, also CRM processes, from the ship to essential CRM point. Why? Because we can create a 24 hours multi-language, multi-channel interaction model. This is today possible. So as of today, the majority of the ships operate with the local CRM processes, COPS, meaning customer operations support, locally delivered by the receptionist. But this is an old way. Through the utilization of on-demand availability, capacity, internetworking, working better with the new technologies, we see at the horizon MEO coming stronger and not only present in some portion of the world, but also LEO. It's a new challenge that the industry started embracing. We are reducing this gap. We are improving the possibility to shift processes from one side to another, and also to give answers from shores to the ship. And this is also giving them the possibility to express a desire and be served, be helped better.
Okay, perfect.
That's an example.
Yeah, that's great. Paul, would you like to pick up that as well? So, you know, the things in cloud that can at today can help your onboard experience, but in the near future as well.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things that we're working towards right now are both machine learning and computer vision. So those are both things that were really born in the cloud, born of having massive compute, and have become increasingly efficient, right? So now we can push those down to lighter weight machines, get the data just that we need on board with opportunistic syncing of guest data, opportunistic syncing of configuration or parameters, and to be able to then process that data on board to create a better guest experience, to be able to enable a more personalized experience for the guests.
Okay. John, I'll move on to, it's been a weird time. I'll move on to satellite comms and cloud, because, you know, when is the glory days of we've got no infrastructure on board and everything is always connected and we're there. Just quickly on that one, very quickly, can we ever see, how close do you think we could ever get to that, of being totally connected with just basic stuff on board?
Yeah, I guess that depends on where your sailing route are. And we do Arctic, Antarctica, and kind of destinations that are very remote and where we see today no satellite connection. And we see the introduction of LEO in particular as a game changer. So as LEO will mature, we will be able to do the same thing as you're talking about, to reduce the footprint on board a ship and reduce our data centers on board a ship to a ever-connected satellite connection, ever-connected cloud connection. But that will take time. So with LEO connection and the low latency there, being introduced next, let's say, 12 months, 24 months moving forward, we think that in 12 months and 24 months and, let's say, 3-4 years down the road, we will see a definite shift towards not having those huge data platforms on board the ship, even where we are sailing.
Great, yeah. And Daniel, maybe?
In this moment, there's a strong disruption on the market. You know how effectively some of the operators are working to build a new model is challenging. We still are observing if this model works. But effectively, we have been struggling, in terms of humanity versus the mountains, the lake, the environment, and all the technology, the constraints that we have to offer connectivity. Instead, connectivity is becoming like the air, the oxygen. We be present everywhere, in every moment of our life. Is becoming like a vital need. So this is happening. We don't know with what technology, but effectively the market in the last 3-4 years, it's in a disruption phase. So I'm seeing with this interest, and I'm working also with partners to understand what's their strategy, but the market is now really changing.
Yeah. Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, that's good. Paul, would you like to just...
We were actually joking a little bit this morning that I think to this end, we need to make sure that we all hope Elon Musk doesn't go bankrupt buying Twitter. He seems to be one of the pioneers that's really trying to make satellite connectivity more ubiquitous. Obviously around the equator, it's no big deal, but even a smaller fleet like Disney's, when we get into certain places in Alaska or the Norwegian fjords, we lose sight of satellites. It's just a reality. We get in port and somebody with a larger ship parks next to us. Suddenly, I can't see the satellite, right? So certainly, we all need that to be. We think that LEO is really going to be the answer, but we're probably still 5 years out from it being something that's a greater reality for the majority of us.
One of the things that will enable us to manage this and also deliver customer experience is the idea of edge computing, which is a new term that sort of developed itself. And of course, all the apps and stuff that Greg has been talking about, I mean, that's pretty much the definition of edge computing there alone. Are you guys, have you got an actual edge computing strategy at the moment? So do you look at every, say, system development and the value of as an edge computing? Do that? Daniel?
We are in this pattern. What does it mean, edge computing? Just to explain, is to have somehow a local instance on the services on the ship. Because we need to have the ship in business continuity mode. We need to guarantee that the service is provided, the gangway works well, the dining, all the customer experience is well preserved. So, and we want to effectively be connected essentially for transferring some of the process, but can happen. For weather conditions, for malfunctionings, for the position, because there is no global coverage yet in specific part of the world, or local interferences. There are some ports where we get interferences. So to still guarantee the services, we need to have an edge instance. So all the software, new software that we are designing, and we are partnered with Otalia, this is very well known, and this software is already designed with an edge approach. But not only that, also the learning platform is designed this way, because we need to transfer a portion of the content, a portion of the experience close to the user. Okay.
Great, yeah. John, would you just say a quick word?
Yeah, it's very similar. We're not there yet. We're looking at LEO as one of the major change makers for our fleet and where we sail. So before that, I don't really see it coming, but for Norwegian coast, when we sail there, edge computing will be very realistic in the close and near future.
There. Okay, I mean, that's such a major, huge topic, so you could sit for hours on it. But we've got a small bit of time. Would like to take a few questions from the audience, from the floor there, so if anybody's got any questions they would like to pose to the panel at the moment. There's a microphone at the back here we can bring over to you. Because if you don't have one, I've got loads. Okay, we good? Okay. So one last point then is, how are you finding the change of staff where as you're moving more into the cloud engineering? So there's a new breed of staff you need, your traditional sort of Coca-Cola drinking, sort of pizza eating engineers, you know, are coming out, and now we're getting sort of, you know, cloud architects, DevOps engineers, and security. We've kind of glossed over that a bit, but security in the cloud is probably the most important part. So how are you finding that? Finding the right people? Are you growing them, or are they out there? Is that a struggle?
It goes without saying that there is a talent war. Some competencies have become rare, very rare, because everybody now is starting embracing this new paradigm of product design, and there are still very few competencies around. So how we are developing the IT landscape is a little bit more wider than that, and but effectively on the market is a struggle now.
Yeah. Okay. And Paul?
Well, and I also think that there's a time factor to that, right? So, you know, I look back, early in my career when Java was kind of what the crazy kids were trying, right? Now Java is just as commonplace as anything.
Yeah.
And I believe that a lot of it is a maturity, right? People that are coming out of the virtualized world will get the cloud concepts, but then there's the more cutting edge side of the DevOps. And when you can marry those kind of virtualized along with DevOps, I think you start to really align on the right type of resource. And the talent pools are out there. It's a matter of marrying them.
Yeah. And that's good. We're kind of running on times up. I'll just say one quick thing that, John, you actually said to me the other day, because they're actually selling Norway to get people out there. They're selling Norwegian lifestyle to grab people. So I thought that was quite an interesting thing, you know. It's good. So that's look, guys, I got to say thank you very, very much for coming and doing that. And I found it really, really interesting. I hope everybody else learned a little today as well, or as much as I did. So thank you very much for coming, and
our
a
best
round
to
of
Richie.
applause for these guys.
My pleasure.
Yeah.